Good morning, LinkedIn. Welcome to Let's Build Daily. If you're with us yesterday, you'll know that this is a special series this week. It's HubSpot Academy's third annual World Certification Week. So all of the conversations and topics this week are related to that. And I thought it'd be awesome to get the side of the story from somebody who started as one of those accidental admins of the HubSpot system and is now teaching boot camps. Adam Stahl from Media Junction. What's going on, man?
Hey, thanks for having me, Chris. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so quite the journey. Yeah, just take us through it a little bit, and then later on we'll create a little playlist of our own.
Sounds groovy. I was thinking about it too leading up to today, and it occurred to me, even you and I kind of first crossed paths on what would be kind of like a community or education-based journey as well. So it's kind of neat to kind of come back here in that way, for lack of a better term, though we keep up with one another. But so yeah, I'm Adam
Yeah.
Stahl. I'm a solutions architect and HubSpot certified trainer over at Media Junction, and I'm also a HubSpot Academy bootcamp instructor and producer, as Chris noted as well.
Yeah, back in the early days of Impact Live.
Yeah.
That was a good time.
Yeah.
So quite the resume you built since then. Maybe good, just like talk about the transition, kind of from outside of the ecosystem into the ecosystem, and then how did you get involved in the HubSpot Academy?
I'd love to, and because for me too, HubSpot Academy was central to many steps of my journey where I started, I have to remember that's 2024. I started on HubSpot at large on the platform about 9 years ago. It was one of the first decisions I was asked to make when I joined an IT company was we're on Marketo, we're thinking about switching to HubSpot, we're not really sold on either, your decision. And I hadn't used either platform. At the time, my feeling back in 2014, 2015, when we made that call was HubSpot seemed more approachable and I'd get more out of it, even if at that time I might have perceived Marketo to have more horsepower. And then I started learning on HubSpot. I hadn't used HubSpot before, going back about 10 years now. And so even from the get-go, HubSpot Academy was huge for me because I was able to jump in and learn on my own time. So things like the inbound certification or like the marketing software certification or similar. So learning about parts of my role. And then as I continued to grow and wanting to learn more about the platform, my roles also increased, or the hats I was wearing also increased internally at the company I was working for. And so, for example, wanted to learn more about the Sales Hub software and how to get the best use out of it, or inbound sales best practices. As I started, for example, supporting a sales team, and how can I make HubSpot work the best for them in the way they are going about their work. And I remember actually my first World Certification Week. I remember it was the first time I kind of started taking certifications that were a little not directly tied to my role. So like I remember frictionless sales very specifically being like in that first batch. That for some reason I was like, you know what? It's World Certification Week. It's a great cause. It's, I think it's $5 for every certification completed or renewed. So I was like, frictionless sales, I think, is something I should give a swing to. And it really started unlocking a learning journey and path for me where I was like, oh, like I maybe I didn't formally know a lot of these things. I learned a lot. It's not specific to the platform either, which I think is awesome. Like the learning in Academy isn't just for, and this is how you use HubSpot, but like this is how you can go about optimizing your sales process. This is how you can be an effective sales manager, for example. And I'm using sales here because I was coming from a marketing standpoint at that time. And I think my ability to learn and grow in that way also helped us internally, where we went from like a marketing team and a sales team to a marketing team to then a RevOps team, or a revenue operations team. And then I moved over to the HubSpot solutions provider side or partner side.
Before we go there, that's already an interesting journey, and I'm curious. So one of the challenges for me on the inside is like you immediately in that position feel the value of this free education, right? Meanwhile, there's a lot of people around you that have other jobs to do. This is a new system. It might seem valuable for them to just, if they just got it and started, doing academy stuff, we would all be better for it. How um, did you use the academy directly to help with that learning curve, or did you have to kind of curate with the rest of your team?
In my case, and that's a great question, I ended up using the academy to help me build the most effective framework for other folks to be working in as a HubSpot admin. So even though they might not be inbound sales certified or HubSpot sales software certified, it might not be required of them. But if I can make the platform and the processes within the platform match what they're already doing, meet them where they are, and ensure that it can be as seamless as possible, as few additional clicks for them as possible, while also benefiting them. It's not making their day harder, it's making their job easier. It's getting them, like in the case of a sales team, that's huge too, because you're really talking very specifically to like their livelihood, especially if they're commission based. Any extra click, any extra minute they're not spending kind of like directly in front of a prospect, very directly affects their personal bottom line, for lack of a better term. And being able to speak to that bottom line was actually a really huge thing that also helped come out of the academy for me. Though I was learning on the job, I was only working in use cases that were applicable to us. So for example, I wasn't directly selling, so I might not get direct exposure to sales processes or best practices or how best to make the system as friendly as possible for those sales reps who, it's maybe just another system for them versus on the marketing team, it was our core system, but, tech stacks are frequently more than one system. Though we are working on tech consolidation today in 2024 at large as an initiative in most companies. So at the end of the day, I can't say even how many ended up getting certified, but because I had the information myself, I could distill it and give the nuggets. Hey, I understand you might not have the 2 hours for this course, but if you just need to know, where do I find this template, how do I send it, and how do I log it, so my performance can be seen by my manager, then I can become that resource for them, even if they don't hold the certification themselves. So in that case, I became that internal subject matter expert. So even though HubSpot Academy at large is very much a hub of expertise, being able to be that provider of distilled knowledge or information or summarized knowledge or information or guidance as needed, and essentially consult in that way, even if it's internally. Like, hey, if you're thinking about doing this or that, I now know you do this. I would recommend doing it in this way. And this is how you can do it in the platform, like in the case of HubSpot. So combining that process with the tool or platform.
Okay, so basically prepared you very well for the next leg in the journey. And I think you speak to, it's just so important to contextualize. Like HubSpot is so powerful, and can do so much, and there's 100 different ways to do the same thing sometimes. And just dropping somebody new in there, it's just a recipe for things not going the way that you want them to. So even though it is a wealth of content, understand the stakeholders around you aren't in it every day like you are, and that's part of your job as the admin or the champion to help them make sense of it all. And Academy definitely helps with all those additional trainings that you mentioned. So that next leg of the journey, you head over into the ecosystem. How does does the relationship change with the way that you use the academy at that point?
I would say there's a yes and no to that, because a really interesting thing you just kind of noted too is when to be introducing the academy as a resource. Part of that is also understanding how people learn, which is something actually I was introduced to in the bridge here when I came over to the ecosystem side, when I joined a HubSpot solutions partner in Remotish, then became unlocked more certifications and learning tracks, as well as the ability to become a HubSpot certified trainer, which is something, once I knew that was a thing. I remember Karina Duffy, when I was internal as a user and was working with Impact, and Karina was working with us, became a HubSpot certified trainer. Was like, that's something you can do. And became
Right.
like, well, where can I do that? Oh, I can't, because I'm just a user. And then when I moved to the ecosystem, I was like, I can now. And so that was something I was really enthusiastic to do. And in there, I learned, for example, things like how people learn, which is something that wasn't necessarily front of mind for me before, or something I didn't have visibility. And then kind of what started clicking for me there is something you mentioned, Chris, is like, HubSpot Academy is just another resource. And not to say just there, but much in the way with like inbound marketing, it's like a right person, right content at the right time. For me, I learned by I'm more of a self-propelled, self-actuated learner. Like, I'm going to go out and do things like certifications. I'm going to go out and do things like take boot camps. Um, Gamifying things works for me, as I'm wearing all of my badges from certifications inbound, for example.
Really.
I get a certification and I can get a little pin if I go to inbound and go to the boot. So like that works for me. I was at a point where I was feeling like I was plateauing a little in my knowledge and experience and understanding in the platform and growth, because when I was internal, I was only working use cases that applied to us internally. And so that's not all things, but I wanted to learn more. And so, like, especially during World Certification Week, it's for a great cause. There's no reason why I shouldn't learn more about, insert topic here that may not directly apply to me. When I came over to the solution partner side, though, additionally at Remotish, our learning was part of our growth tracks as well. So we had defined role-based growth tracks. So we were required to get certain certifications, but also I just wanted to keep learning. And so I just did. And it was a really great experience for me, because then I started getting understanding and knowledge. And I'm someone that's always trended towards kind of academia at large. So the structure of HubSpot Academy, again, like right content and right place at the right time. I'm an eager learner. I want to, break out of my current shell and continue to grow. I want to learn about areas I'm not directly working with on my day to day. It needs to be accessible for me, off hours, for lack of a better term. Like, I would be doing this after work, or remotely. Like, I can't physically go somewhere necessarily to do this learning. And for me, it had to be low cost or free, because I wasn't necessarily getting budget for it before. So, in the case when I was internal, HubSpot Academy was the perfect thing for me. When I became a solutions partner employee as well, the perfect thing for me. Like, here's not only the existing catalog you had, all the more, which was for me excellent. And so I just
Right.
wanted to keep learning and keep, and what about this? Oh, I haven't thought about that. Or, oh, I've been wanting to learn more about insert topic here. And then having it formalized too from, great instructors and experts in those areas.
Right. And I think that's huge that you point out. We're going to be talking about it in more detail tomorrow, with Christopher Nolt from Growth, in that coming into that space where it is required, right, for you as you join this agency, and it is a part of the culture that we are doing things like this to grow ourselves and to get better at serving customers. And I think it's easy. And I just want to point out for the non-HubSpotters watching this, like, it's, yes, you're hearing from a lot of agencies, you're hearing from, people that are in the HubSpot ecosystem, but this is true for any organization, where if you can, and the academy can play a bigger role if you create this space for, hey, it's okay to take some time to learn some stuff that, might not look on the surface like it's directly related to your job. But if it's existing in the system that we're working in, then there's probably some nuggets that you can pick up, like the frictionless sales that you mentioned. So that's a great point. And that freedom, that safety to, like, hey, I can learn about stuff, and the people around me aren't going to think I'm wasting time, right? Such a concern for many, and it's understandable when it's not a part of the culture of the organization. So I'm guessing from there, Actually, I don't know. I don't think we've talked about how you transitioned into, the boot camp stuff. So what happened there?
Yeah, and so becoming a HubSpot certified trainer was that first thing to do. Is you need to be an HCT, a HubSpot certified trainer, to be a HubSpot Academy bootcamp instructor producer in one of the pods. I had taken HubSpot Academy bootcamps. I think they used to be called something else in the before time when I was a user internally as well. So I had some familiarity with them, or at least with the older version. I was working at Remotish uh, with let's see here. I think it was just Jen. Jen was a HubSpot Academy instructor for actually the boot camp I am in now. Previously, it was the Sales Skills Boot Camp, and now it is the Discovery Call Boot Camp. I'm trying to remember if there's anybody else involved at the time. I think it was just Jen. And Jen, um, uh, I very much appreciated. There was an opportunity where she was going to be starting up the RevOps Boot Camp, which you can take today and still is in existence and created by Jen and some other fine folks.
It's
Uh,
awesome.
she had tapped me to see if I wanted to apply to potentially be in that instructor pod for RevOps, because RevOps I was a a senior HubSpot strategist and digital project strategist, depending on the timing of it at Remotion. I don't remember exactly when I jumped into HubSpot Academy boot camps at that stage. So one of those two things, but essentially I was consulting on RevOps, and I applied. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, just things work out the way they're supposed to work out. I wasn't able to get the position on the RevOps bootcamp, but I was able to get it on, at the time, the Sales Skills Bootcamp, in the seat that Jen was vacating to lead the RevOps bootcamp, which would highly recommend taking if you haven't yet. Phenomenal bootcamp, great folks, um, and I mean, even HubSpot agencies and agency partner folks I know take the RevOps bootcamp and get a ton out of it as well. So don't,
Yes.
no, it's just for. And so joined the team as a producer, learned a ton. And in the case too of tying this back to frictionless sales, because even though I was an internal marketing strategist, I took the time to learn about things like inbound sales, frictionless sales, sales management, the HubSpot sales software as well. So then internally, before I came over to a solutions partner, I had a lot of those baselines of like things like how to optimize sales processes, how to optimize sales outreach, best practices for sales outreach, best practices on calls and similar, that were also fed by HubSpot Academy certifications I took outside of my direct, call it, line of sight, but things that kind of touched my role, but weren't necessarily in my role, and applied. Because of that experience, I was able to get that producer role in that instructor pod. Spent a year as a producer, and then heading into this year, I moved into one of the instructor roles for it as well. And so that's
Cool.
been an awesome opportunity. And the folks at HubSpot Academy are amazing. For example, like Dan, Rachel, Lotum, they made something I've always loved about HubSpot and HubSpot Academy and the ecosystem, the community at large, is you can grow as much as you are willing to invest into it. And that if you are motivated to, become a HubSpot certified trainer, which is technically a certification, if you're motivated to become something like a HubSpot Academy bootcamp instructor or similar. For example, I see a note. Hi, Adam, from Oscar in the chat here. Oscar actually just joined my the Discovery Call Bootcamp instructor pod this year as well as a HubSpot certified trainer. Joined,
Awesome.
was able to get one of those roles as well. So it's, it can be you if you're driven to continue to grow and contribute and learn. I've always loved that about HubSpot at large, and the community ecosystem and the education, how it's core to HubSpot, that you can learn and grow as much as you are willing to, put effort and drive and persistence um, and goals behind it, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, and I think I'm sure this has been said by a number of people, but I remember Marcus Sheridan saying it a lot. It's like, if you can teach something, then you've truly learned it. Like at that point, right?
Mm.
It's a there's no better test, right, than whether or not you've learned something. It doesn't mean your learning stops and that you've learned everything you need to know, but the ability to teach something creates a different aspect to learning the topic at hand, than other elements of the process. Well, that's awesome, man. Appreciate you sharing that journey. I'd like to, in the spirit of, this daily building activity, jump into our HubSpot Academy instance and build a playlist with you. Does that sound good?
Sounds fun.
All right. So I am pulling up. All right. Let's see if I can do this without. Let's go over here and then share screen. There we go. Window. There we go. Okay. All right, so we can see the playlist screen in the HubSpot Academy. Yes, Adam?
Oh yeah, can confirm.
Cool. All right, so we got Jorge's top 5 from yesterday. And, this is a more recent addition to this space of HubSpot too, the ability to, help HubSpot champions and admins really curate these situations. So instead of sending like a Word doc, full of links to resources, we can, create a playlist. So we're gonna go with Adam Stahl's top 5 WCW here. All right. So what are your? Well, first of all, as we were talking about this, you brought up a good point. Like anything, communication, marketing, we need to understand the audience that we're trying to help here. And I think the concept of you are a CRM admin and trying to support. Like this is the part where I would love to be able to say you're trying to support a sales team and you're creating a playlist for the sales team to come in and do like Academy. And the reality is that's not likely to happen. So who does it make sense? Let's start there. Like who does it make sense to, create a playlist for where that they're going to be able to come into the Academy and actually get some stuff done?
And that is so tricky, right? Because it depends on also their learning goals. So I know that's something that's been a core focus of yours lately, Chris, is like, when do I bring someone into the Academy and how, in a way that it unveils itself to them in a way where it's building on information that they now know from a previous iteration. Whereas if you're going in net new, like net new, it could still be a lot to digest, even just with some of the more, I would say, like 100 level courses, for lack of a better term.
Right.
I was gonna say, if we wanted to treat this almost as like a mixtape, or like I have 5 I know that were transformative for me, for lack of a better term. I think I've got those off the top of my head.
Let's
and I can speak to when in my journey those hit me. So that first one I think is only fair to give a shout out to, that frictionless sales one. Now the context of this one is because I was an internal marketing strategist, but increasingly, and this was even 3-4 years ago, as a marketing contributor, you're likely not limited just to a marketing silo anymore. It is so crucial to be able to work horizontally across your organization and across teams as part of a, previously we'd call it a marketing, now you'd more so call it like a revenue operations team. And that, how are you able to be helping your sales team sell more efficiently, effectively, and readily, so that you can help them make the most out of their at bats, for lack of a better term. And by doing so, you can also likely get more usage or more adoption, because if folks are seeing like, hey, this is making my job, more streamlined and more effective, they're going to want to use it. And that's really crucial for sales. And especially with marketing, you might intrinsically, just, oh, we're getting HubSpot and I love it because it's an established marketing platform. Like, well, with other hubs like Sales Hub, Service Hub, Content Hub nowadays, there's so much more to it that you can be getting usage out of in a way where it's benefiting others, and it makes you more of a valuable asset to folks as well.
Yeah, and I'm remembering how powerful this one is, and like this is where just the presentation of I like to highlight things like this just because it shows you that HubSpot has been at this for a long time. Is this being free content that matters to their users, that can actually help their users grow. The ability to kind of break this up into appropriate chunks, add in some, external insights, but then like just apply like the framework as I'm seeing, like identify the friction, enable your sales team, align your sales team, transform. I'm reminded of the framework that you learn, in this course. So this is a great pick for sure, and a great example of the power at your fingertips. It definitely takes, an understanding of the culture of the organization. Like you can't just go, hey, sales team, you're doing everything wrong. This is how we're going to fix it. Right. But this gives you the tools to have some of those conversations in a meaningful way. Right. So definitely a great pick here.
So for example, as you noted, Chris, like your internal stakeholders may be that sales team that you're looking to get adoption on, or if you're at a solutions partner, one of your clients or all of your clients likely have a sales team. And so this allows you to help also speak their language and break down barriers as well and get to some common understanding to get everyone in alignment, pulling in the same direction. And, ideally it's a rising tide lifts all ships kind of a scenario. By you being able to speak to these and tie these pieces together, it's benefiting everyone.
Yes. The common language is super important. And I think in a lot of cases, this relates to like a lack of digital transformation, in that one place where you can kind of take charge, no matter where you're at, is kind of trying to create this common language, and using HubSpot Academy courses consistently can help you do that, in a way that it's like, hey, it's not just me saying we got to use these words, right? They're being used, at this successful company, all these partners that we work with, right? So let's get to number 2.
All right, another number 2, again, another like transformative way, and also building kind of on the frictionless sale principle we made, is the revenue operations certification.
Yes.
So for me, though, and for me too, it was, though I was consulting on revenue operations, and though I had I would say a better understanding of it than I did, from Jump Street as a marketing contributor, much as how frictionless sales. So this is coming, I guess, from my background also. It's like I started as a marketing contributor and I wanted to grow. And so even as a marketing contributor, this helps you go both horizontal and deeper, in that all of your goals, keep in mind, are fueling larger goals of your company, likely related to the almighty dollar. The closer you can get to influencing that dollar positively, the more efficient, the more effective, and the more valuable you're going to be in the business space from a contribution or consulting perspective. And the revenue operations certification, there's a section here specifically with communicating. That was definitely one. And I think, the cost of poor quality stands out to me, and the template as well. So like, I think this is a section I even went back over like once or twice, because I was like, oh, like I got introduced to it. Now I really want to understand it even more. And I really want to be able to actuate this, because I found in my career being able to, speaking in, like we did for frictionless sales, being able to speak the language of revenue allowed me to have different conversations and more conversations with folks like those at the C-level or on the executive board. I went from a place of being like, clicks, sessions, and conversion rate or leads, and maybe marketing qualified leads, to sales qualified leads and deals and opportunities, which have a dollar attached to them, to revenue and cost savings and similar. And when I was able to start having those, revenue related conversations, I saw more growth and more opportunity for me to be contributing in more involved or effective ways than I had in the past. And so the RevOps certification is huge for that. I can't remember if there's a practicum for this one or not, but I recall it being one where like,
I think there is. Yeah.
Exam. Yeah. But this one absolutely stands out in that transformative space. If you are in marketing, especially if you are in sales, though you're already speaking to revenue, this can help even speak to costs and not just like dollars coming in and how you can help in that way. If you're even in customer service, even or client success, being able to speak to, hey, if we make this change, we can maybe have this positive impact, even if it's not adding to the top. Maybe we're subtracting, if we're lowering costs, we're still improving margin, which means we're still, working towards our goal without necessarily, you can attack revenue growth in multiple ways. And this helps introduce you to that.
No, I think this is a perfect example of, HubSpot listening to the issues that the users are having, getting things done, getting the most out of HubSpot. Because just like we talked about wanting to bring people into this common language of marketing and customer experience, and we need to take the time as people focused on that to speak the language of, the CFO and the accounting team. And because I'll tell you, like that common language will always beat your common language because that is the lifeblood of the business. Right? Cash in, cash out. And I remember hearing about it, and it's still kind of a narrative. Like, one of the best things you can do as a marketer is understand this stuff. And HubSpot, even if you don't, like, this is a 6-hour cert, if you don't take the whole cert and you come and take this section, right? Accounting courses, just looking at these different templates, just like it is on the marketing side, just seeing these words and acronyms in these tools, in this context, can help you have these conversations to the point where, for me, I was able to say, like, one of the challenges is you want people to see marketing as an investment, right? And if you're not engaging in this part of the conversation, they will always classify you as a cost. And if you can speak to cost pieces while, like, creating some nuance with where we're actually investing, right? This understanding of this language, like, can go a long way to helping with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's mentioning Jen again, Jen Berger, clear as kind, though I know that technically isn't her quote, but I always attribute it to Jen. Chris, also, I don't think I've actually used her full name. Sorry, Jen. So Jen Berger, the Jen I've mentioned several times already in the live session here, had really got me bought into but like the concept of just hammering in like the clear as kind. The more clearly you can communicate something, the more effectively that communication will come across or land, for lack of a better term, and not just be a broadcast, like a one to out broadcast, and actually a conversation, a back and forth dialogue. And to your point as well, Chris, so, marketing being viewed as a cost center. Okay, well, if you are being, perceived as a cost center, and you may not have control or as much control of being able to show the visibility of bringing in new business, you could absolutely potentially then work on showing like reduction of costs. So like, okay, if I'm going to be stuck in this perception of a cost center, I can show you, even if I can't show influenced revenue at this stage, at least I can show if we do this, we can decrease this by this, thereby, decreasing that perception of cost, and also decreasing those line items, and just also being able to have those conversations and suggestions. Maybe it's something like, for me, an exact one was for us using a third-party tool that integrated with HubSpot for batch automated data cleansing and deduping. So I got to a point where, we'd go to send out a big marketing email like once a quarter or something for a big campaign, and I'd always have to go in and be manually cleansing this data, one at a time, and it took X amount of hours a month. Well, I understand that the rough cost of me, like, I know how much I make, and if I'm taking this amount of hours to do this, it costs this per month or this per quarter for me to be doing this. And this alternative solution was like a quarter of that effort and has more value. Hey, I just saved the department some costs, and we have more feature set. Very small example of it, but that was one of the first times, like, that concept as a marketing contributor previously clicked for me.
Yeah, and as you talk about that, it just came to mind, like, you know, some of the flash, especially on the marketing side, and what HubSpot can do, can cause a lot of focus to go towards attribution. And how do we prove our worth via attribution? I'd say if you're not spending at least equal amount of energy understanding the cost side and the RevOps side of things, you might find it much easier to show your value over there than it is on the kind of who gets credit for what, attribution side of things. So definitely something to keep in mind. We've gone a little long here, but this is, I think, a super valuable conversation. So I appreciate you. Is it okay if we just spend a few more minutes to round out this list?
I'm good if you are, yeah.
Awesome. But let's do kind of a rapid fire 3, 4, 5.
Sure. So CRM architecture, I think there's 1 and 2, but at least CRM architecture 1. This is going to be critical, especially if you're a HubSpot admin, or it might not be, or it might be called something similar. I think architecture is NMA, integrating with HubSpot.
I think
this might be a back in my day. It was called something. It might have been rebranded, but it might be integrating with HubSpot. It might be integrating with HubSpot 1, maybe. I could have sworn Meg Duffy taught it, but let me see. That might be even a newer one. Let's see what I even have. But the reason why I bring this one up, the CRM architecture one, and again, it might have had a rebranding. So another tip while we are discussing this is I keep my own HubSpot certification tracker offline, because though the My Team view is great, I like knowing like when my certifications are expiring, which ones have practicums associated with them. In my case, 2 estimated hours to complete. So I know, hey, I have X amount of hours in my day. I can, I've got 2 hours. Oh, and the, CMS Hub implementation one estimated about 2 hours. Okay, I could fit that in. It's called, or at least I have it called HubSpot Architecture 1 Data Models and APIs.
Okay. And I think that.
So maybe it got rebranded here. Let me see.
Let's do data model.
Course link. Let's see here. It is now called, as my link spins, HubSpot Architecture 1 Data Models and APIs. Well, I guess wherever it may be, if it is available to you, it might be a solutions partner only course now that I think about it, or something similar. But
yeah, I think it is.
But
I was talking about
that. It's available to you.
Sorry. I was talking about that with Kyle yesterday. There's some, I think, some value there for the Academy team if we can figure out how to make some of these partner only content available to the masses, especially as we try to teach widely things like the data architecture, so that people can understand the full value of HubSpot.
I would say then it looks like integrating with HubSpot 1 Foundations would be an applicable one as well. In that the concept I was looking for here is this really helps you think about how you are connecting data both within HubSpot and potentially outside of HubSpot. So in that your tech stack is likely not just HubSpot. That would be very clean. And HubSpot does many things, but also, there are likely some areas of HubSpot that it isn't covered within your business. It's really great to have then the understanding with this related to things like, so even knowing that like I'm not necessarily a developer, I shouldn't say necessarily, I'm not a developer. I'm just gonna put it that way. I'm someone with enough knowledge to like muck around and maybe break something and like, make small changes to some things. But knowing how data connects into HubSpot allows you, especially as a HubSpot admin, to have a greater understanding of how and why you may want to be connecting data. When it's available, it's great out the gate to, if there's a ready-made application, especially if it's a HubSpot certified one or made by HubSpot, being able to pull that, but also understanding how that data is moving, understanding, your rates related to API usage, planning out, for example, when and why calls are made. I found that information to be transformative as I think about data architecture within and outside of HubSpot. Because again, you're a common use case of this. This course wasn't available at that time. Previously, in that internal role, we used HubSpot and an outside ERP. That ERP did not have a native application into HubSpot. And so something we had to do was explore, okay, well, if we could connect it, this is how it might look like. We explored some third-party data connectors and similar. So I have to have, as a HubSpot admin internally, a greater understanding of how to be able to connect those pieces together, how they might connect and similar. Fortunately, now that is an ERP that has a native HubSpot connection, but at that time, and there will always likely be that. There's going to be systems in your tech stack that maybe don't natively connect into HubSpot, or maybe want to be connected into HubSpot. There might be something pushed down that, we need tech stack consolidation, we need visibility in centralized locations, single pane of glass. How can we get there? There's another way you could potentially make recommendations of saying like, well, if we could accomplish this, or if we could do that, we could use a private app to do this, or use API calls to do that, or similar. It just allows you to have different kinds of conversations, but then if you can pull them back into those previous conversations, and by doing that, maybe we can reduce the subscription that we have in this other platform, or stop paying for this third-party connector, or something similar.
Yeah, and those are some of the quick to value, not necessarily quick like project-wise, but helping the leadership team understand potential value from that perspective, can be huge. And I'd say, one, if you didn't learn the data mapping in the RevOps, of course, you'll certainly learn it as you try to integrate, other systems and the importance of it. But also, whether you like CRM admin, Excel, HubSpotter, RevOps leader, there is a wide range of, what you're expected to be doing, and maybe what people expect you to know. And what this can do, I think, is give you that foundation to speak from, because no matter how many systems you have in your business, as we try to modernize for a customer experience and, internally and externally, this again gives you a language to speak from, where it's not only this is how it works for HubSpot, but the more systems we have where there's open APIs and they're easy to work with, the better our overall system becomes. So you might not be an expert in ERPs, but you can certainly apply some expectations and maybe help out with the vetting, right, of these systems, to ask some good questions and make sure the other people in the org are asking these kinds of questions, right? So definitely some good points there. What's number 4 here?
All right, contextual marketing.
Yes.
I think this one should be available. So contextual marketing, again, from a transformative perspective, I remember one of the first HubSpot bootcamps I was taking, and they might have been called something different at that time. They might have been called master classes or something. There was a competition during it where if you get like the most certifications during the bootcamp was running, there was a benefit. I was short on it. But contextual marketing was one I went into with a similar reasoning as World Certification Week. Hey, there's this incentive to be doing it, which is why I'm doing something with, though this is actually, that was more related to my role as a digital strategist, for example. It was something I'd always thought about applying to, and this was the reason to push it over the edge. And I found I use it more and more now that I understand, or, even going back to then, I understand more and more how to apply it, when to apply it, and why to apply it, as opposed to, I understand HubSpot has smart content. I understand HubSpot has smart rules, but how do you mindfully apply that, especially in a day and age where folks want a bit more personalization, a bit less, wide net, but more specific to their needs, their goals, their challenges, especially from a marketing perspective, as you're talking to your personas with your content, from a sales perspective, as you're trying to move a prospect potentially further down your sales journey. Having that contextual marketing knowledge and how to apply it, I found to be, that one just sticks out to me. Is like, as I said, like I remember a specific hub transition pivot point when I took that certification.
Yeah, no, this is one of those ones that I wish like we could just get everyone to take like blindly. Like, yes, it's called contextual marketing, but it shows you the power of having all your customer data in one system, and how and why, like, it gets you to the things that you say you want to happen as a marketer, sales guy, service guy, leader, Like, we want all these things to be nicer, to say like, hey, related products. I see that on Amazon. I want to do it on our website. It's like, well, that's all based in data. And if you can just understand this quick 2-hour course, everything gets a lot clearer for you. And this is why all the process in between, matters. So I think we're going to end up with this on each list this week, which is appropriate because it's the underlying potential of HubSpot as a platform, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, the personalized experience, and that gets you more than other places. For example, the olden days of, well, we have this website, it is static, it is a pillar or a monument that we set up, and we do this huge effort once every 3, 5, 10 years, and then we don't touch it until then, or you do little tweaks in between to break it in between. It's like, no, like we can be more than that. We can be greater than likely the average that we're competing against. We can be giving a better experience, and this is one of the ways you can be doing it.
Yep. And it's not as hard or costly as you think it is.
Exactly.
So let's round it out. Number 5 here.
I think this should be available HubSpot reporting.
Of course.
And I know that's an of course, but to what we've been talking to, I think of forwarding. Yep, HubSpot reporting. So in that, as we've been kind of talking to, and there's some threads here. I remember a point in my journey where I loved something I loved early about HubSpot is being able to tell a story, and being able to tell a story that was supported by data. What HubSpot reporting certification helps facilitate also is using the data to tell a story versus a story that has data. And though data itself is, well, I'll say data itself doesn't have an agenda or similar, but as we're talking to frictionless sales, as we were talking to things like revenue, how do I show our data in a way that is digestible, where I get the information I'm looking to get out of it in a way that it's insightful and informative, and also can help, either support my goals, support my vision, or communicate my vision. And you can do that with things like HubSpot reporting. So when we talk about frictionless sales, okay, well, how well are we doing at attracting sales qualified leads and converting them to deals and converting them to close won deals? And what are the most effective ways we are doing that? Or even from a marketing department, we are doing a ton of things, and there are likely costs associated with those different channels. We're doing, maybe we are doing TV advertising, which might not be typically associated with things like inbound. We're doing organic search efforts. We're doing content creation related to email marketing. And again, back to that organic social, maybe we have a referral program. Okay, and we're investing X amount of dollars in our budget, whether that's in, person time or actual dollars, like in the case of something maybe like radio or TV advertising, there's a line item dollar associated with that. Okay, now how do I see how those are doing so we understand how to be adjusting or pulling those levers? Do we put more funds or more cost into this channel because we know it is doing better at getting us to our goal, or do we do it in that channel in a way that's not just, well, it feels like, or or if you ever have a stakeholder say, well, we just want to try it, and especially if there's a large dollar figure to it, okay, like let's try it, but let's be tracking it and reporting on it so we can see how it did. Hey, if it went great, yeah, let's do more of it. If it didn't do great, let's understand maybe why it didn't and either optimize it or understand that maybe we wanted to try this, but this channel, in the case of marketing, choosing a marketing example here, is simply just performing better. And so if we put more effort into here, increase funds, resources, budget, we will get more out of the other end of it. Or very commonly, I have clients or even similar, like, hey, we're doing a lot of the top line work, right? Like, hey, marketing example, we're sending a lot of marketing emails, we're getting a lot of opens, but maybe like your click-through rate's about here. Like, hey, we've got a 30% open rate, but a 1% click-through rate. Okay, well, maybe part of that's not working as well as we were hoping because, marketing is showing the data, well, we're getting a lot of opens if you're just focusing on opens. But sales is saying, yeah, but I'm not getting a lot of sales qualified leads out of it. Oh, well, because we're not converting people out of that marketing. How do I know that? Analytics and reporting.
Yes. And I think this is also a classic case of, yes, this is a HubSpot reporting certification, but like learn how to incorporate data-driven decision-making at your organization, full stop. Like, yes, you're using HubSpot reporting tools to do it, but we are learning how to do this piece first, because if you don't have this part, right, and data literacy here, then it doesn't matter which tools you're using. And I have sat myself in countless meetings where you look at a bunch of data and then nothing happens, right? Like, why are we looking at data if we're not going to make decisions based on it? And, you know, again, it's a crucial aspect of, yes, a good way to, confirm your knowledge of the tools that you're using, but also what goes into them. This is not just, hey, we got HubSpot reporting now. We're going to be able to know everything we know. We're going to be able to know everything we need about how this campaign worked. And it's like, well, only if you put all the data in and then tell the story that's meaningful, is when it's going to work for you. So understanding all the pieces of that process are crucial. So, and that goes well beyond, HubSpot itself. So that is a great list, my man. And
snakes a little bit here and there, but I think there's some. So for me, these are ones that I know where I can tie back to like transformative parts of my journey, especially earlier on. And additionally, I think there's a lot of common thread in between being able to speak common languages up and down and across your organization. So you're speaking across silos, across teams. You're able to enable support and make other folks' lives easier as a part of this overall more, you've probably heard the term RevOps flying around everywhere, but truly as part of a more revenue operations or RevOps based effort where everybody touching that bottom line in some way or capacity down that journey, you're making it more efficient and more effective to do so.
Yeah. Well said, man. Common language, common language, common language. If we don't have that, it's very hard to move forward, folks. Well, this has been awesome, man. Appreciate you sharing your journey. I think this is super valuable for people looking to dip their toe in the water. And, hey, if you're like, hey, I'm the marketer and I've got inbound marketing done, I've got, content marketing done, like there's some other stuff right next to those, and kind of trust some of the suggestions you're getting from the community, from HubSpot itself. Even if you see the name of a section and it sounds like something you've already done before, the context of that course can be crucial, and you just get more out of it, the more reps you get with this stuff. And it helps you be a better marketer. It helps you, be a better, teammate when you're trying to communicate this stuff. So, don't hesitate to dive in, especially this week. And Adam, it's been a pleasure, man.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Pleasure's always love talking with you. And another add benefit if you're going inbound this year, make sure to swing by the HubSpot Academy booth, because you can get pins for your certifications as well if you're like me and are really swayed by get some flair, really swayed by gamification. But it's a great time to be doing this. It's great. It's always a great time for learning. It's a great time now because of the added benefit of you're helping others for a charitable reason as well.
Yes, sir. Happy World Certification. We got them.
Happy WCW, Chris, again. Thanks for having me. And always a pleasure chatting with you. Thanks for having me. And for the additional time as well. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks, everybody.